Hello, this is Erin. Welcome to Seek the Magic. Last night I went down a bit of a rabbit hole. I started by watching the Roger Federer documentary, which was great. And I'm not a huge tennis fan. I am auxiliary tennis fan and have had many of those close to me throughout my life. Love tennis, love playing tennis. And so therefore I'm interested in connection to them. I took tennis lessons when I was little. We lived in England at the time, so I have these memories of all these indoor lessons in these huge domes because the weather was always awful. I enjoyed it, but my hand-eye coordination was lacking in any developmental way to play as I got into middle school and high school, and so ended my short run of tennis. Could pick it up again, maybe will when my kids start playing. Of course, there's always a draw to pickleball. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Watched Roger Federer's documentary, which is on Amazon Prime, and I loved it because even though I'm not good at sports hand-eye coordination wise, I love running. I love setting goals and pushing past them. And I love sports stories and I get so much inspiration from them. This was no different. And it gave me a little bit more background into Federer, his decision around retirement, his feelings about the game, everything like that. It was a wonderful documentary in terms of encapsulating his reflection in his career and also his what seemed sure about retiring and his decision there, but then also his feeling about moving into the world of the unknown, which is what are you going to do next in your life? I think for athletes, even though there's a lot of uncertainty and sort of the art of competition, whether they're going to win or lose, if they are good and they make a decision about their path towards a sport, at least they have, sort of direction. And if they have any success and they're like, this is who I am, this is how I identify myself. And then, at the moment they decide to retire or do something else, there's the question of what is my identity and how am I going to look at myself and present myself and connect with the world moving forward. That was a big takeaway for me because I think that's something many of us face in many of our mere mortals, but everybody faces at some point or another. I think it's valuable to realize how often that comes up. And I find strength in knowing that other people encounter that too. And it's helpful in knowing that there are moments of uncertainty in both personal, professional, spiritual, whatever aspect of life you have or parts of your identity you have. There are moments where you say, who am I? What am I doing? Where do I want to go? And it certainly seems like Federer had that, but dealt with it in a beautiful way in terms of celebrating where he was and seeming to have strength and determination in what he was going to do next. And also, showed celebrating with, his competitors, which obviously we see the rivalry aspect of that on the court, but just overall celebration of the sport. And it was interesting seeing also legends that have come before him, like John McEnroe, sort of usher him into this life transition that they do on a very public stage when they retire, but again, as a very human element of that. And I think there are certain aspects of those transitions, which we can call the liminal space. I was listening to a meditation the other day and they call it the liminal space, which is, in meditation, they talked about it, the pause between the breath. So between when your body is taking in oxygen and then exhaling carbon dioxide, that is something that we can scale to life and say like, okay, what are those elements of transition and how can we take those and consider those and use them in ways that will benefit not only where we're going and what will be the most value to us, but also what will be the most value to society. Before I've talked about sort of the the difference between the mind and the intuition, and what part of ourselves decides to listen and run with, what the mind is saying, which, sometimes can be smart and helpful, but sometimes can be lead us down a path of concern and worry, which limits what we do and can take that moment of decision. And, then we can either go forward and grow, or we can hold back and not move forward. The good thing is that there's always another moment to move forward and another moment between the proverbial inhale and exhale to decide, or to make another choice, to take the risk or to go into the unknown versus holding back and, staying within the safe area. And I think what I appreciate it are, looking at others and seeing those moments of strength where they've, gone into the unknown and are bravely facing those moments of growth and expansion, and knowing that oftentimes they've done it before and they've been for the better for it. But our natural instinct as humans is, survival, safety, stay in the known. So those two things are at conflict all the time. And I think it takes practice and also trust, and in my case, spiritual connection, to lean into the unknown and go into the space of edge, uncertainty that will drive and move us forward. So yeah, that was my experience last night from going and watching the Federer documentary. And then I went down the rabbit hole a little bit more because I recalled that a few weeks ago he did a graduation speech at Dartmouth that went viral, and spoke about his experience, the fact that he had recently graduated to like the class of 2024. He graduated from tennis, which, everybody loved, but he had a few points there too that were interesting. Some, I've highlighted that are confirmed in the documentary. Some at the end, he showed everybody a little bit of tennis grip technique, and which went completely over my head. But one thing that was interesting was that although he had won so many games, there was a small differential between the points he'd won and the points he'd lost. And that, I think while his record reflects, one of the winningest tennis players of all time, he had to fight for each of those moments. And in each of those moments, he had to, keep going and trust and have the confidence in himself and what he was doing to move forward. And even when he lost, he talked about when he was, going for a record 6 times of winning Wimbledon, he didn't win and he knew he wouldn't have that moment again, but it was important to move on from that. And, even though that was a pivotal moment of loss, he still went on and had a storied career from that. So I think that's really key, because at moments where you think you have a loss and there's, it all seems over to your known mind, or, from the expected, you're like, this is the path I should be taking, and this is the result that I expect. Even though that doesn't happen, still having the faith in yourself and, the universe and, whatever your spiritual beliefs are, to have faith to move forward. And I think that was very inspiring. Also, he talked about, the fact that he has been seeing that he does everything with ease and grace. And he said that's a myth. There's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. And I think that's interesting, especially in the space we exist in now, which is seeing everything in, clips and short sound bites and or pictures, videos, posts, whatever. And you get one takeaway from something or one impression, but that is not the whole story. And I think that that's really key to remember for me, myself, and also to remind my kids when they get old enough to think about that, but to constantly, not constantly, but to remind each other at the appropriate moments that, we see sometimes the final result, sometimes just one aspect of something, but it doesn't convey the entire story. And if we take that small takeaway as, oh, I shouldn't do this because I don't have that same, sort of look, or, that person's doing that so much better. It seems so much easier, or something like that. You don't necessarily know the whole story. And there's aspects of their journey or what they've shared that are great for you to take away part of it, but it shouldn't inhibit you from doing something or going on a journey. It's hard to talk about these in generalities. I can talk about it for myself. I would say starting a podcast. I am podcast obsessed. And so I've had many wonderful people sharing lots of different, points of knowledge in their life. And I have grown so much from that. And I want to share as well. And so I have this deep desire in me to share. And there's certainly a part of my mind that says, what business do you have sharing? Other people do this so much better than you. All these things come up. And that's probably true. I look away from the mic, and I've been trying to do this podcast since January, and the sound quality has been horrible. So that's been a journey. And there are a list of like 100 things that I could think of, for reasons not to do this, but just talking out loud and sharing my thoughts, and hopefully sharing my thoughts with other people and exchanging information and sharing ideas will be helpful. And I'm really excited about that prospect and hopeful for the future. So I'm taking inspiration from Federer today, and the not on the court, but maybe someday I will have that opportunity again. And hey, maybe in a future podcast date, I can interview Federer and talk to him more about his wonderful journey and where he is right now. I think that would be absolutely amazing. In terms of connecting with my inner voice, I think that that's been key throughout this journey, and that's something that helps me move forward. So if you have, a desire to more deeply connect with your inner voice and, make those moves forward, make those decisions in the pause that, will push you into the unknown that might be a bit scarier, I can help you connect with your inner voice if you're interested. So go to my website, erinm.xyz, and sign up for an inner voice session. And other than that, I hope you can seek the magic in every day and know that part of that magic may be scary, but it can also lead to something wonderful. Thank you.